Welcome everyone to our third class titled First Things First. Hope you found huge value in the first two classes. You're reading the lesson plans and also, of course, watching the videos, reading the lesson plans that are attached to some of these lesson plans, answering the questions, and really beginning to give thought to what you want your life to be like on the inside. So we're going to talk about first things first. Now, I'm aware that you may be in a totally different situation than me. So the downside to teaching a course, it's somewhat general in nature. If we were to work together, if you to work with our team, it'd be very specific and hone in. Still, this should benefit you. And I mention this because some of our clients at White Collar Advice have very little resources left and have to rebuild and start from scratch. Others have significant means and never need to work again. And their first thing first, so their goal is to do some reputation management or really improve upon their legacies. But whatever your goals are, if you're proactive and begin with the end in mind, you'll be successful leading to first things first. As I said in a recent video, what you do the first days and weeks on the inside is going to set the tone for absolutely everything that you do. So I encourage you, even before you surrender, knowing there isn't going to be any violence, knowing the highest value inside of these minimum security camps are, let me shut this off as I get invoices from my son's preschool here. Bills are coming. Knowing that there's no violence and the highest value inside of these places is boredom, you should be preparing to be productive and really specifying what it is you actually hope to do there. Now, something I didn't write about, or we didn't write about in lesson 3, but I want to focus on in this video is the idea of creating assets. So there is a stigma that accompanies a criminal conviction. So whether you're a multimillionaire who never needs to work again and your goal is to improve your legacy, or you need to rebuild and start over as I did on the inside, it is going to be easier if you can put first things first by telling yourself, I'm going to begin to create some assets. Because so many people come home from prison and they talk about what they've done, yet there's really no evidence behind it. And it kind of gets, the hard work, frankly, gets lost. So whatever it is you're hoping to do, I hope the first things first, from when you wake up in the morning and you have your list and get the hard work out of the way early. If not, it's going to be on your mind all day that you need to do it. You want to immediately begin to knock out items on your list. And I believe it's really got to be asset driven. I'll share an example with you as we talk about first things first. So all of you by now know my very close friend and business partner, Michael Santos. And here's an example of a business that he's spending a lot of time building. And he calls it, or we call it, compliance mitigation. And in this specific article, we're talking about risk mitigation and how compliance mitigation is going to help companies avoid criminal investigations or deal with executions and those sort of things. It's very elaborate and detailed. You'll notice at the bottom of this website, he has put out a call for contributors. And we have contributors on our site, some of whom are clients. All of them, or most of them, have spent time in federal prison. I can assure you these people have created assets they were able to then share with Michael to demonstrate their value. Now, look, these assets could be writings that they have done, or resumes they've created, evidence of what they have done through confinement to document why they could be of value. So these assets have enabled people to join our team. And I'm actually inviting all of you, as you go through this course, if you think you could be an asset to compliance mitigation, if you think you're in a position to help companies understand the consequences of illegal conduct, to help put protocols and processes in place, then you should absolutely respond to the email as part of this course. And we can make a connection and determine if it's a right fit. And by doing that, and even just coming back to here for a moment, you begin to create a plan. I know some of the people watching this have yet to be sentenced, and that's fine. Imagine if you can begin to put first things first before sentencing, or while you're on the inside, if you know that you're going to move into a space like this, for example, or you want to join compliance mitigation and work alongside Michael, me, and others, it's going to be easier for you to get paid and build and grow if you have assets. And that's only going to come if you spend your time on the inside putting first things first. That should be writing, that should be documenting the journey. It should be spent developing assets you could disseminate for years and years to come. If you've been sentenced, you probably got a better sentence if you had a compelling first person narrative. That's an asset. right? People who join our team have a higher likelihood of succeeding or even coming onto the team if they could demonstrate and give us assets that prove what they've done beyond just talking about it. So success for all of you in this third class, putting first things first. It starts with what skill set do I have and where do I need to improve? In my case, I knew I wanted to develop a career as a speaker, as a writer. I had to build my vocabulary. I had to begin to write. I had to read books. That was the first thing I did every single morning. The last thing I cared about was my prison job. I did it. I always did it, but I didn't need to save all my energy for that. In fact, a couple of times in prison, I was so exhausted during my prison job, I fell asleep standing up. The guard had to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, wake the F up. I fell asleep. I'd run 10 miles. I was up early. I was exhausted. The point is, I got all of my hard work done in the morning when I had the most intellectual capacity. And I can tell you, in federal prison, if you want peace of mind, there is nothing more fulfilling, more exciting than putting assets in the mail home, whether it's a letter or a blog or a manuscript or a resume or a business plan. That is fulfilling. And by creating it in the morning, I knew regardless of what happened the rest of the day on the inside, whether the phones went down, showers were cold, closed the yard, dealing with people who you may not want to necessarily be around, by virtue of getting that asset out the door, I felt like I had won the day. That day was productive. And if you were to Google White Collar Advice or Michael Santos or me, you'll see extensive bodies of work that have been documented over lengthy periods of time. So as I wrap up first things first, I want you giving thought to assets that you're going to create on the inside that will demonstrate why you should join corporate compliance, or you're worthy of getting hired at a new company, or you're worthy of getting off probation early. Do you want to get off probation early? Let me tell you what helps. Assets that demonstrate to your probation officer why you're worthy. In fact, you should be writing letters to your probation officer from prison, as I and many of our clients do. You've got to be asset driven. And if you can do that with your experience, you will have peace of mind on the inside, because it grows and it builds up, and it's really slow and steady wins the race. You write a page a day, 2 pages a day. Before you know it, you have an extensive body of work. So that should be very exciting. Again, if any of you have interest in learning more about compliance mitigation, respond to this email. We're in the process of collecting case studies and growing the team. And here's the beauty: because you've been through this experience and you've been sentenced and you're going to prison, you have a different asset. Don't run from it. Put first things first and learn how to tell your story. First things first and learn how to think like an underdog. First things first and tell people how you're going to use this experience to benefit others and yourself. And I'm going to talk about it in the last class called Win-Win, which is class 5. This is the end of class 3. First things first, develop and build those assets, and your prison term is going to be a piece of cake, as my bunkie used to say. In fact, as my release date was getting closer, he used to say, crumbs left, crumbs left. And then on the final day of my prison term, he said, no crumbs, you go home. First things first, you'll be rocking and rolling. Respond to this email or this video if you want to learn a little bit more about compliance mitigation. Thank you. Bye-bye.